The agenda meeting, April 16th, 2018, order. First, this is not on our agenda, but first I'd like to recognize a Boy Scout who is here with us. Hello. You are Ralph Abdella Masih.
It's pronounced Ralph Abdel Masih.
Thank you. All right, what troop are you from?
Troop 935.
935, okay. And you're here tonight?
I'm for merit badge requirement.
Okay, which one is that? Citizen?
Citizenship in the community.
Okay, great. Thank you. I'm glad you're here. If you have any questions after the meeting, or do you know what ward that you live in?
Yeah, I live near the border.
Okay,
of
okay.
Vicksburg.
I was just going to point out who your representative is, but that's all right. We can figure it out later. Okay, thank you. Thank you for being here this evening. All right, number 2 is a presentation on resource protection provisions in the town's performance zoning regulations governed by the D-Development Zoning District, which extends along the town's portion of McKnight Road. Whole presentation.
Oh yeah, we're ready for this one.
Okay.
So we were asked by council to do a presentation on the resource protection land, how it's calculated. And resource protection land by itself, it's not quite that simple, and it's all that is one part of a calculation that goes into an entire development. This is in our D development district. The D development district is along McKnight Road, and it goes down from Perrymont Road up to the end of McKnight Road on its northern border with the base of Pine Creek Hill. So it's called D development. It's a performance zoning district, and the performance zoning district is a different sort of zoning. We have something that a lot of people refer to as Euclidean zoning, and that is you can have this use here and you can't have it there, and it has this amount of setback and it has this type of buffer, and everything is prescribed for you. Whereas performance zoning is entirely different. It's done by, it's mixed use. You can have a wide variety of uses in it, and everything is done by calculation. Whether it's the setback, the type of buffer, the height of the light poles, the amount of light that can go in, and the areas that can be developed. So a major part of that is resource protection. So we're looking at this particularly in terms of McCandless Crossing on the west side. And we're using that as the example. That's what council wanted to know about, is the west side of McCandless Crossing. When we're looking at the west side of McCandless Crossing, it is probably more complicated, even more complicated than typical performance zoning, in that first off we had to do a conditional use approval. That means that it had to go through town council, planning commission, and town council just to establish the use of the property, and there were over 75 acres on that property. So there are conditional use standards they had to be approved. And then the second part of that was a land development process. And in that land development process, we asked the applicant to establish where they were going to develop. Then after that, and that's before we even get to any buildings, each building had to go through land development. We have with us tonight Dan Diceroff, who was kind enough to join us. He's a town engineer, and he's sat with us during the calculations, and he's going to explain how the calculations came to be. And part of that is we had to look at the slopes. The 3 key components are slopes, the woodlands, and the floodplains on the west side of McCandless Crossing. So at this time, I'm going to turn it over to Dan, and he's going to go through how we got to the developable area.
Good evening, everybody. As Bruce said, the D Development District is different, and it's complicated in the approach in terms of the numbers. So for everybody seeing this here the first time tonight, Bruce and I have been looking at this for years and years, and every time that we go back to look at it again, you have to re-educate yourself a little bit on the things, because it is very complex. It was done back in 1988 by a big planning firm that brought this in, and it's got some different things that you won't see normally in most zoning ordinances. but as Bruce had said, the first part of the plan, just to get everybody oriented, this is Duncan and 19, the intersection right here. This is headed west. This is obviously east. This is McCandless Crossings, and this is what we refer to as the west side development. The total area involved in this was about 75 acres in total. That was the Coyne property. And essentially this conditional use was the start of the development. And as Bruce described, it laid out the conditions. It sort of laid out in general what the development would look like. And then the next step was to move into the land development plan. So same picture, but a different part of the analysis here. What this represents, it's a slope map of the base conditions of the development. The reason this piece is left out, this is one piece that was owned by one of the Coyne heirs who did not participate in the sale to the developer on the whole project. So this was not included in the calculations. This is the Lowe's area. This was included. Total of 75 acres. And what this established was the slopes. And the slopes that we really care about in terms of resource protection, the way the ordinance is set up, is there's steep slopes, and the steep slopes range from 0 to 12%. They really don't account for them. They figure that that's normal ground. They do account for steep slopes of 12 to 15% range, 16 to 25, and then 25% or greater. And the reason why it's in different colors, and these colors represent those different slopes, is you're allowed to develop, based upon the zoning, a portion of those areas that are in resource protection. So the ordinance allows you to develop more of the slopes from 12 to 15%, less 16 to 25%, and even less 25% or greater, because 25% or greater slopes are not slopes we shouldn't be developing on anyway. So they're protected that much more. So they did this entire plan where they analyzed the slopes. We look at those based upon the contours and the elevations to determine those slope maps, and the computers generally generate these type of slope maps now. We verified those numbers, and out of that, what they determined was they started with a certain amount, and then they ended up with, they started with 55.2 acres that fell into these categories. So there were slopes, and then there was a floodplain area here which was taken out, and then there was also woodlands. And this map actually represents the young woodlands, approximately 3.8 acres that you see in a different color on here. And Bruce and I were, as we were getting back into this again, one of the things you have to recognize is there's overlaps in certain resources. So you don't protect a resource twice, you protect it one time for the biggest amount of protection that it should get. In other words, if we have woodlands on steep slopes, would be protecting the steep slopes more because the requirement to protect that resource is greater. So I know this is...
So now this is where all the fun stuff, after all the analysis takes place, this is where the fun starts.
Right. So in these, this is the chart that comes right out of the zoning ordinance. The developer's engineer provides those maps. We verify what they provide. So as we described, floodplains, there was 2.75 acres. You can't develop anything in the floodplain, so that has to be totally protected. So that's why this number equals that number. And then you work through the other numbers. I'm not going to go through each one, but young woodlands, there's a ratio of 0.4 times that number that it has to be protected. Steep slopes, 0.6 times for the 12% range. 16 to 25, it goes to 0.7. And as I said, in 25% or greater, 95% gets protected. So all of these numbers equal to a number right here, which is 40.7 acres. And then we move to the next.
Yeah. Now this is what the initial question was, what is resource protection? And that's it in a nutshell, and that's how it gets calculated.
So it's a 40.71 acres that is protected of the total 75 acres, is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Okay.
Now, don't let that number by itself
Uh-huh.
doesn't mean anything, because that fits into another set of calculations, which Dan's gonna go over in a minute. So, but that was the original question, is what is resource protection and how is it derived? So it starts with, just to summarize, it starts with a detailed survey of steep slopes, woodlands, drainage ways, typically in what we found in this area, drainage ways equaled floodplains. So we have the list of things. You notice we don't have any drainage way, that's because we determined they were all floodplains.
Excuse me, real quick. Greg, did you say 75? And
The total was 75 acres on the,
oh, but that's not
Yeah.
displayed, it's not displayed on
No, we started with 75 acres.
in the other slides.
Yeah,
Yeah,
well, we didn't
well,
put it on any slides, that
you'll
was
see
the
it coming
total
up.
number.
Okay.
So this is,
that's
then we
fine.
look at the total land that Dan just described, was 55.2 acres, is the area that is within the resource protection land.
I'm with you.
And then when Dan ran through, the applicant and Dan and I reviewed it, this is the area that ends up in resource protection.
so where's the other 20 acres, like the total is, you know?
The 20 acres would be in land that's less than 12%
Oh, okay,
and is not within a floodplain, a drainage way. So it's sort of the best part of the land, you
Yeah.
describe it.
okay,
It
Or
doesn't
it,
have any issues.
okay.
or it fits within, oh yeah, okay, right, that answered your question, I'm sorry. I'm jumping ahead one. Okay, now this is where the resource protection fits into this set of calculations. So Bill, to answer your question, we started off with a base site area of 75.3 acres. Then we take out that 40.7 acres that Dan just went through that's in resource protection. And subtract them, and that equals the buildable land. And then we take the buildable land divided by the base site area, and we come to a calculated impervious surface ratio, which in this case is 0.46 is the ratio.
And because it's 0.46 in the actual, for this performance or class of the zoning, the number was 0.5, so it's less than 0.5, which was the desired number. It pushes you into another calculation below where you actually take a reduction in the factors. So we start down here again with the base site area, the calculated impervious surface ratio. This is the permitted impervious area, 34.6. Calculated impervious surface ratio is 0.46. The actual impervious surface ratio out of the ordinance is 0.5. So you take 0.46 times 0.5, and you have a reduction factor of 0.92, 92%. So what it's saying is that there's an allowable floor area ratio, maximum floor area, and that's 0.24, but it's being reduced to 92% of that number, which takes it down to 0.22. So what it's ultimately saying is you use this factor, 0.22, times the total site area again, and it gives you a permitted floor area. This is actual building construction, like square footage in a building of 16.6 acres. So the two numbers that we've been tracking on the development, again, resource protection comes into this, but as Bruce says, the key number is permitted impervious surface area, 34.6 acres, and the permitted floor area, which is 6.6 acres.
16.6?
16.6, I'm sorry.
16.6. Now, when we're looking at, that sounds like a lot of floor area, that includes, that's not footprint, that's vertical also. So there is an allowable height, now the allowable height is 60 feet.
So ultimately, out of that, there was another thing that the developer actually came to the town for, because our ordinance said that the maximum fill slope allowed would be 3-to-1 per ordinance. They said we can do less disturbance if we go 2-to-1. So there was a modification granted to allow them to construct 2-to-1 slopes based upon geotechnical information and a whole bunch of information. Council granted this modification, so in effect, this became a grading approved plan out of all of those calculations where they could actually build things on. So you see sites here, which are now, LA Fitness is here, there's a hotel here, there's some development going on here now with the nursing home, the daycare center on this side.
Nursing home here,
Nursing
assisted
home.
living, yeah.
So really it just set up the pads for this all to be developed. And then everything else around it is essentially not developable.
Yeah, and then, as we've looked at this and we've looked at the conditional use plan, this actual calculation fits closely, very closely. This was part of the land development plan. And it fits very closely with what the conditional use plan showed. It was, so they followed that very closely. When they did their conditional use, I think they probably had a lot of this calculation already completed. And so this is what it ended up with.
And then after that plan was approved, they did come back and ask for council's modification from council to do a small project over here. Actually, this wasn't the developer's project, it was the gas company came and asked to disturb an area within this portion of the resource protection to actually take care of a gas line that went over to Demler Drive. It was actually a situation where they needed to make a connection between the gas line and sort of make a loop, or there was going to be a problem where they were going to have to dig up the entire gas line on Demler. At that time, council felt it was a better way to go this way. The developer had to reforest the area that they disturbed, and again, this will remain in its natural condition.
Yeah, and this one, when Greg initially asked the question, what is the resource protection land? This one is very well defined. It was defined by council as this piece is resource protection by itself.
That whole 15+ acres.
This, yes, this entire site, it was,
Yeah.
when town
but
council.
where do you find that other than this? Where would I go to look at that
It was in this approval.
approval?
When we did
approval
this specific approval, we said this is resource, council said this is resource protection.
Now, my question is, when you develop the coin property for, say Coins develop it, this hotel goes, this hospital goes in, and they want to get substitute land for something off-site, which would to me means not in McCandless Crossing West, but somewhere off-site. Does that have any effect on the resource protection land elsewhere in McCandless Crossing West? McCandless Crossing West.
We have worked hard on this. I've spoken with Gavin about it, and we've all talked about it. The administration has talked about this. Gavin, do you want to?
You know what, how about a no? How about just a simple no answer to that question? Resource protection land is approved under a land development approval by town council. That's what it is. The only way that can change is town council, correct me if I'm wrong, Councilor, is if town council reapproves a plan for that land.
I agree with that, yeah. That's actually a really good explanation. But that's not to say that an applicant, and to be clear, there's a little bit of a distinction, and I think Toby covered it, but that whoever owns that property would have to come in to amend that entire development, essentially.
Whoever owns what property?
Not the one to be developed, but the one that you're concerned about.
Yeah,
that's currently resource protection land.
to the west of Duncan
McCandless
Avenue.
Crossing West, and that specific, go back to that slide if you would.
Right.
Well, you can use it, you can see right up there. It's that green chunk up there.
Right.
Well, no,
Yeah.
wait a minute. Which I'm.
He's
But
talking about
I'm
the
talking
Denver
about the
Drive.
west, the property to the west
You
of
said-
Duncan Avenue.
What was your question again? Maybe I'm.
Well, is that property any way affected by the coin property or any future developments under the?
Not immediately.
What do you mean by immediately?
They could come back to town council.
Oh, they would have to
They
go back.
have to
They
come
have to come back.
to town
It's been
council.
approved, it's been reserved that way.
Okay,
Let's keep that
but they
clear.
would have to
So-
go back to town council.
Right.
Yes.
Okay.
So does that mean that it can't do that? No.
We have to
They
Yeah,
could
but
come
they
back
have
to
to
do it.
ask. Yeah.
They would have to ask.
Right, that's a
Now,
great explanation. No, that's good. I'm with you.
Okay.
I'm with you.
I was
Thank
gonna
you.
take it a step further, because it may seem like a simple answer, but I don't think that it's that simple. as with everything, with,
This wonderful zoning district.
with this, yeah.
Go ahead,
Well, what's
take
the
it a step
kicker?
further.
What's the kicker?
Well, if they come back, if they wanted to come back, if we approve this ordinance, I thought that's what
Yeah,
your question was.
that's my question,
I
yeah.
thought that's what your
Yeah,
question was.
if we
If we
approve this
approve
text
this
amendment,
ordinance, and then we give relief on the calculations,
Right.
on the percentages that Dan went through, if we give a relief on the percentage, what does that apply to? Does it apply to the entire district? I thought that's what your question was.
yeah. But
And how do we maintain protection of any of this other land?
And so we have language in there, it's not to affect current development and land protected area with respect to the current
It's
development.
already protected.
Yeah,
Yes.
It's protected, but is it protected forever?
well, no, because it can come to town council, as long as
Right.
they have to come to town council.
And that's important for everybody to understand, that they could come back. So is it protected forever? The answer is no.
We could protect it forever by having a conservation easement.
You have to have, that's.
Yeah, can we go back retroactively and put a
No, okay,
conservation?
yeah,
easement
I
on it?
I know it's not gonna help.
You can't, well, you can't,
Yeah.
I'll say again, let the solicitor advise, you can't impose a conservation
Yeah, I know,
easement on somebody.
yeah, right. They would have to,
This-
Adventure would have to,
this-
on their own,
When this was invented in invented here in 1987, studied in 85, 86, and approved in 87 by ordinance. This was a concept, a guy named Lane Kendig came up with, this performance zoning. The idea was to preserve more difficult properties that really, as Dan used the term, should be developed, like a slope over 25%, it's only 5% might be able to be developed, to let that lie fallow.
Okay.
Nature didn't intend it to be developed apparently, so just let it alone. And so what this ordinance does then is that by having this calculation, and when this calculation gets the stamp of approval from the town council and says, this is it, this plan is approved, the only way to undo that is to amend that plan
right,
somehow.
yeah. Well,
It's
and
almost
that
a-
amendment has to go through town council.
Right, and exactly, and it also is called, it went so far as to label it resource protection, not open space or just some land. I mean, they really drew attention to the fact that the environmental conditions on the property are being respected.
Okay.
But to be clear, if it does come back through council, the standards that would be applied in the future would include this new amendment that's under consideration. I think
However
that's
it's
part of
worded.
the answer, right?
Now, we
Well,
will try to.
wait a second, let me absorb that before you jump in there. Say that again.
So I think we're all clear that this amendment in and of itself would not change any of the conditions of the approval of the particular parcel you're concerned about, not the small format hospital, but anywhere outside the small format hospital in this development district by adopting this ordinance amendment. However, if the owner or owners of the rest of the development area would come back through and want to change this, then the standards under which council in the future would have to review it would include this zoning amendment that's under consideration by council.
Yeah, but still would have to come through
Absolutely.
council, okay. So even though we have language in there that it's not to affect resource protection land with respect to already developed areas?
Even that language should not be sufficient, because you can't just go ahead and say, all right, you've developed the property one way, forever it must be like that. You know, a future owner, if under the right circumstances and if they can meet all the rest of the requirements, might want to do something else with that land, and that would be too restrictive of the town to say that. The only way you could do that would be, as you said, at the conservation easement.
Well, wait a second, a future owner, isn't he bound by way, does he get more rights than the current owner?
No, it could be the current owner too. I guess when I say future owner, I maybe future applicant,
Okay.
which could be the current owner or
Okay.
successor owner.
So just to summarize what Gavin just said, if we adopt the ordinance as it was presented to you, it would apply
Well,
to all development.
Well, we're gonna use some adjustments. I wrote you a letter and I wrote.
Yeah, we've talked about that, and it's still not gonna cover the way that we thought it should, the way we would want it to.
Kim, could we have, the applicant's counsel is here, would like to address this particular issue. Would that be all right?
I think it would be fine. Thank you very much. So, what we did when we we're working with your solicitor and with Mr. Betty on the changes to the ordinance, were to add as much protection as we possibly could so that it couldn't go back to the prior development. So, you know, and I understand that, and nothing is perfect, but that's what we were trying to do, is to make it so that it was as limited as possible. So the only other suggestion I have is one that would say, you know, going forward, if you want to go back and redevelop an existing property, it would have to go through I don't know, Gavin, we'd have to talk about it, a special exception. Or we could add in language like that that would put another layer of protection in.
Well, a special exception would go before a zoning hearing board. Could you do a conditional use?
You could do it as a conditional use.
Okay, okay,
And then it would just come back to council.
right. Okay, thank you.
Is that the only thing that is?
Want to do the final piece?
Yeah, the only thing, just to conclude this all, what we've been doing, Bruce and I, as developments come in for this tract of land, we've been tracking from the beginning those two numbers, the one being the impervious surface number and the number of the permitted floor area. And as it stands right now, we were looking at the numbers tonight, and it doesn't appear that they will even reach the point. They're almost fully developed there, and there's still some land left that could, there's like 6 acres of impervious that they could still do, and there's about 150,000 square feet of building that could be developed, yes.
So since only you can read those numbers,
I can't even read them, I have them on another sheet.
Let me see if I can enlarge it.
You can't
I
enlarge
doubt
it.
it.
I just want
It'll
everybody,
just turn into blur.
I'd like
You know
everybody,
what, yeah, well, you're right.
I'd like everybody to know that you have started with just like in essence, a checkbook. There's a declining balance. All right, Bruce, if you can zing in there. No, back to the fine print.
He can zoom the top corner all he wants.
Dan, can you
I
read?
think
You
you were
can't
right.
read those.
Yeah,
Still can't
just
read.
Can you
blur.
read from your sheet you have there? Or
I
Bruce
can
is-
barely see where it
Yeah.
says west side use.
The last column, under west side use allocation, some of us could probably see those words, west side use allocation,
Yeah.
tabulation.
Yeah, the remaining area the remaining floor area is 3.66 acres. That's why I said that's about 150, roughly between 150 and 200,000 square feet. And the remaining impervious surface area is 6.2 acres. So,
And on that chart, you started with
right,
the amount that was tabulated under the site capacity analysis that you did, right?
right.
The
We
applicant
started
didn't
with
check.
16.6 acres, and they're now down to 3.66.
16.6 acres of
To floor area.
Floor area allowed.
Floor area allowed. And then impervious surface, they started with 34.6, and they're down to 6.2.
Okay. And that's what that
That's what this chart represents.
obscure chart shows.
Yeah, sorry about that. Every time this comes in, we give this and subtract off and keep track of it
Bruce,
that way.
why don't you show the chair, at least the chair there, that chart, so we can see, well, that's what that one says anyway. This is from the approved plan document file.
That folder is too big. There we go.
It's okay, just flop it around.
Is this
So this is the
land
chart here
development?
that we're
That's
talking
that
about.
right there.
This is from the land development. When we did
This
this
is from-
land development, it was for the installation of Duncan Avenue and for all the grading. Now, in this case, I believe that the resource protection land is more limiting than because we can't go back and change the resource protection
Get the
land
break.
that was established in the
The
beginning.
only one who understands this.
That's my thought on it with that.
That's the 34.6 acres they started with,
Mhm.
total impervious area. That's what Dan was just reading, 6.2. And they started with 16.6 acres of floor area, and they're down to 3.66. That's what he was just reading from. So this is,
So would it help anything, would it help a situation with respect to the the resource protected land on the west side of Duncan Avenue, if instead of CVEST designating an off-site wooded area as an area subject to resource protection, we could have them maybe get with Adventure and buy some of that.
Sort of a transferable development right concept. Yeah, that
I don't
sounds
know
like
what
an
that means,
interesting
but-
thought. I don't know how that would work, but it's a thought.
Well, that's an asset, so
Yeah.
that someone owns, that's just something, meaning that.
Would it still be
eventually-
2-1?
I don't know, well, in that case, you know.
Yeah, it would almost have to be
We're-
greater because we don't want to double dip.
We're thinking on our seats here, but I don't, you know,
Yeah, I'm not sure how it would work because they're required to have a certain amount already.
yeah,
Oh, they're required to have
that's
it already?
theirs.
Yeah.
I don't, you know, we'd have to think about that.
Would be double dipping.
It's a little, it's a great question, but I
It is
think
a-
for us to
it's
try
a
to.
great
Well,
thought.
unless it gives us a,
If it gives us, you know, you obviously want a simple and as in
Yeah,
essence, a
yeah, you do.
confining
Yeah.
answer, I think, so that this land doesn't get used for some other purpose.
Right,
That's the whole point.
yeah,
And,
make
or,
it subject to an
and put a
easement.
conservation easement on it. so-
Conservation, yeah.
Could we go backwards and have them buy a conservation easement? We're
We have-
asking some tough legal questions on
Yeah,
the
we
fly.
have another, the third party who's not in the room who would have to be on. board
Yeah, I know,
with
I
stuff
just
too,
wonder if
so
it's a possibility.
We might be getting ahead of ourselves.
It's creative thinking.
It is a creative potential solution we'd have to take a look at. There's a lot of calculations that we'd have to make sure again that you'd have to stay in compliance with your last approval, right? No, that's first and foremost.
Right?
And would any transfer of ownership, that obviously starts affecting your calculations up there as soon as property leaves one development and goes into another. So it's like all these moving parts that are gonna have to, I can't say it's impossible just sitting here, but it seems like it'd be difficult to get that kind of equilibrium.
Yeah.
We tried to get that owner of that parcel to participate in this early on, but they didn't want to. And
Okay.
it would have been better to do it all as one back then.
I thought that's why we paid you and Dan the big bucks.
We don't have all the answers. Dan has most of the answers, but not all of them.
Anything else?
No, that's
Okay,
it
So
for
that was
me.
real good. Thanks, Dan.
Sure.
Are there any questions from
Thank you.
council about
Yeah.
this? Any more about this? So, this is out of order, but on our agenda for next Monday, we have that we're going to vote on this. Do you feel like that we're ready to vote on this? Do we need to consider some of these other
Well,
options?
I mean-
Or what do you all think? Because it seems like people still have a lot of questions, but
For next Monday, I thought we were just going through the
next Monday it
discussion
says
next
move
Monday.
to proceed with the consideration
But
of
aren't we-
request.
But that's not the voting.
Now, aren't we just voting on them moving ahead with some of the plans?
Some of the text,
We're
yeah.
not
Plans,
voting-
not plans.
Not the text, the
Only
text.
text
and-
language in the ordinance.
And my understanding is that text does not get approved even though it's sent to the county. And it's sent back, then it doesn't get, it's not approved until we actually approve it.
After the public hearing, you'll have a chance to vote and then approve it.
Yeah, and in the meantime, couldn't you possibly explore this,
Well,
or-
yeah, the only kind of important thing to keep in mind though is if what we send to the county, if it turns out to the actual amendment itself is changed in a material way between that point and what's actually adopted, then we'd have to start the process over again, send it back to the county, and have a second public hearing.
So, this is Dusty Kirk again, from Reed Smith, and I'm representing CVEST. And I'm not sure that what you're talking about would require changes to the text amendment. You're talking about, I think, some other issues as to whether a client could buy property from,
well, currently the
McCandless
text amendment
Crossing.
reads that they would be allowed to buy off-site.
it says that we could buy
Yeah,
offsite.
but that would,
so
I presume would be eliminated and you would be buying, on-site, or would.
Well, that's off, I think offsite is the property
Oh,
that
okay, the
we
five-
own.
no,
So
the
I don't,
five.
I think that covers it, is what I'm saying.
Oh, okay.
I think it covers it. And on behalf of this client, they are under an extreme timetable to get property developed because of the health care marketplace in our region. And so I would urge you, if you can, to vote on this, and if you can, and send it to the county, because then the hearing's not gonna be for 45 days. Is that right, Gavin?
That's correct.
Anyway, so there, I've worked really closely with Bruce and Gavin on the language in the text amendment, and so that it's doing two things. It's giving flexibility so that the proposed developer can buy, just like you're suggesting, off-site property, and also making it as limited as possible so that people can't come back in.
Okay, thank you. I guess, I mean, it's still, Gavin, you think that a developer would have to go through council to touch this area of resource protection land?
Yes, I do. The
Okay.
area that's already been approved by council, I
Yeah.
do think that they'd have to go through the full process with council.
Okay, yeah, I don't have any problem with that.
With having it on the agenda,
Yeah,
is
having it on the
everybody else
agenda.
comfortable with that? I just wanted to make sure while we were on that, I just wanted to touch base with that.
Which
Okay.
precisely, just to clarify, which motions are we talking about? The zoning?
The one that's on the tentative agenda
Yeah.
under zoning
Zoning
number 1.
A1.
Mhm.
Okay, that's what I thought.
Yeah.
And we're precisely concerned with the request to modify the resource protection section, right? Right. I know where we are.
Yes.
Okay, all right. Any other questions from council? Is there a comment from the audience?
Is it okay to comment?
Yeah.
It's time, yes.
Barbara Richards, Madam Court. This sounds a little familiar from what went on a year or so ago about that same piece of property that juts out on the west side, on the other side of, you were showing it, that little square that
That's
was
right up there.
And I think that, Mr. Wakaskis, you were involved in that. Is there, is this, what does resource protection land have to do with conservation easement? Is it the same thing? Is it a trade-off?
Well, my understanding, and you can correct me, Gavin, is that the resource protection land is designated as such on a site, and an easement, the town actually owns an easement. And then actually, they could get a donation for,
No, town doesn't have an easement. It's
not the resource.
For conservation.
She's saying for the difference.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I'm saying
I'm sorry.
for the difference.
Yep.
And actually, the person that gave the town an easement could get a deduction equal to the fair market value of the easement.
So they're not trying.
A tax deduction.
Okay, so this is not the same thing as what happened a year ago when a developer wanted to develop that piece of land.
No.
No, it's a completely different thing.
Yeah.
Is there any explanation where resource protection lands come from originally? Why have those been designated as resource protection?
Through the development process.
Yeah.
That site capacity analysis that Dan and Bruce just went through, they showed when the applicant came in, the applicant had to identify steep slopes, woodlands, etc., overlaps and so forth. They ran through all those numbers, and when they came down to those numbers, the applicant showed those numbers. Our engineer and zoning officer said, yes, we agree with your numbers, or no, we didn't, until they actually, both parties agreed on those numbers. And when that was put before town council, there was a vote taken, and those numbers became an approval for that land, and that is what that land is to be used for, unless another application comes in and the applicant gets an approval to change that. It's in council's power. Council has established that with the applicant's submittal. The applicant submitted to that, council approved that land would be protected and remain in resource protection. And the only way to undo that is council can undo that, and nobody else.
And is that what you're trying to do, to
No.
They wanted to know, I think council wanted to know what we just said. Explain that, like I just sort of
Yeah.
tried to summarize.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Okay.
Any other questions? Yes?
Hi, my name is Debbie Sagan, I live in Parkland Drive, and so I am still, I apologize, I haven't been to meeting previously about this, I just want to clarify that there was, the floor area is 16.6 acres, is that correct?
Maximum.
And then that's, but then in addition, you can go up 60 vertical feet, correct?
Not in addition, including.
So what's the actual floor ground
Depends on how high you go.
area? No, I mean, how much?
She's asking if we
Wow.
have it.
There's
actually
not a
figured out
number
right
like
now.
that because it is either vertical or on the ground.
Horizontal.
Yeah, so either way you look at it, so it's up to the applicant. They also have to take into consideration a third part, that's impervious surface ratio. So the more horizontal they go, Steve put it, that was a
Yeah,
good way to do
horizontal,
it.
for lack of a better.
Yeah, so the more horizontal you go, the more impervious surface you use, so the more impervious surface area you use. So this ordinance was developed to go up. So you don't disturb slopes and you don't get more impervious surface. It was designed to protect the environment is why it was designed, the way that it was designed.
I'm still not clear on that. I mean, I'm clear on it, but I still don't understand why you can't come up with a number of, and, you know, this building stands on 1 acre, something like that.
We could come up with it, it'd take a while, but.
But
You
if
came
we
up with
took
a lot
half
of
of,
numbers,
if we
so-
took half of this building and stacked it on top of the other half,
Yeah,
the floor area is still the same floor area. They've just consumed the same floor area, but they went up. So that means they haven't covered as much
Right, but-
ground around it.
so how much ground is there?
Well, then the rest of it is, there's only
You-
so much floor area that they can have. If they would have been able to have more impervious surface, they chose to go up, they're gonna wind up with more pervious surface. In other words, more resource protection by default.
You would have to go and measure all the second floors or third floors of everything, I mean, which probably we could do.
Exactly, yeah.
And,
That's what's been
and then
done.
just deduct that from the 16 acres.
It's been done. That's what
There.
the running track is here.
The 16, so it's not 16 acres.
Well, no, it's like 13.
It's somewhere around 13, I think is what we had. What's it say there?
Started with total floor area of 16.6
right
and
now-
subtracted off for Lowe's and LA Fitness, et cetera, and we're down to 3.66.
For this particular project.
No, this particular,
All of them,
Period.
all the projects within McCandless Crossing West.
Interesting. So what is the height of this, how many floors could this be, maybe,
Well, we don't go by floors, but the maximum height is 60.
60?
yeah,
But
they're
they've
they're
asked
proposing,
They're asking for 65 because hospital floors are higher than most office building floors.
So that would be a variance then?
No, it would be a change to the ordinance language to go from 60 to 65 feet if council votes to approve that after a public hearing.
And we have, what, an 80-foot max with our ladder anyhow?
We have an 85-foot max.
it
In
sounds-
some other areas of
yeah,
town.
you have to look at outriggers
Right.
and I think the ladder's 105 is the ladder?
That was
You can't
determined.
use the
Right, but he
maximum.
said 80, it was
That
80
sounds right.
something.
In some
That
other
sounds
zone
right.
districts, it's 85 feet, and that was determined because that's the angle of the 105-foot ladder tower, which was our highest ladder tower, could reach an 85-foot high building.
Yeah, never stay above the 7th floor.
So it was done scientifically.
Yeah,
Where is the new developmental piece that's off-site that you're discussing? Any idea? Are we allowed to know that?
yeah, it was said publicly at one of our meetings,
Planning Commission meeting.
at the planning commission meeting, it was stated that there is a place where we have a dam, it's called the Whitmer Dam off of Highland Road, and there are 10 acres there, we have a large easement there already. It has steep slopes and wooded areas, it meets very well the requirements that they're trying to modify by this ordinance.
So this in no way is even similar to what we discussed about a year ago in the other nursing home? This isn't the same property at all?
It's on the corner of McKnight.
You see the bright white flag in the middle? Yeah.
McKnight and what, Greg? I'm sorry.
McKnight and Duncan Avenue, Duncan to the south of Duncan Avenue.
This is McKnight, this is Duncan, this is the piece that we're talking about
It's
now.
on the west of,
And the piece we talked about last year was on top.
Is this piece?
Yeah, that's what
Right.
okay, so I didn't realize that was the white piece and not the purpley blue and green up there. So it's away from the school, it's the
Yeah,
trail
right,
and everything, it's
right.
down below. Okay. Anything else we should know? Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any other comments? Okay. All right, next presentation by Sue Broughton, requesting the town council adopt a resolution at the April 23rd business meeting supporting independent redistricting commission, legislation, and congressional reappointment.
Well, I've learned one thing tonight, and that is that land development is a whole lot more complicated than when my late husband used to teach it 40 years ago at the law school. I sat through that sort of old memories. Anyhow,
So you
each
can
of-
say your name, please.
well, she did. I'm Sue Broughton, Suzanne Broughton, and I currently live at Cumberland Road Village. I've been there for 7 months. Okay. Each of you has a blue folder. And I'm going to apologize to the audience. I did not realize that this room had this kind of projection facility. If I had, I think I would have put the pieces I'm going to comment on something that you could project. But I didn't know. There are a couple of other copies of this that people could look at if they wanted to. I put it in this format because there's a lot of explanation and material in this folder, way more than I can talk about. So to try to be brief, I'm going to make brief comments on only the pages that have green tabs on them. So we start with the first green tab. You can see that in Pennsylvania, on statewide elections, Democrats generally get somewhere between the high 40s and the low 50% of the votes. But our congressional districts, the Democrats only have 28% of them. They were at the point that this slide was made 5 to 13, which is way out of whack with what our general voting pattern is if we vote statewide. It's now 6 to 12, of course. Next tab. So how does this happen? The first, these are off of my slide presentation. It was about the only way I could do it on the notice that I have. In the 1990s, Congressional District 12 was a nice compact thing that you can see at the top left. And after the 2001 redistricting, it became the sort of grotesque shape that you can see over to the right. And the reason
Just a
that...
second.
Yeah, doesn't everybody have one?
He does, he's,
I'm one too far.
go back.
Oh, here.
Go to the top.
We're on the second tab.
Right there, oh, right
There
there.
we go.
That is- Thank you.
Sorry. And the two X's mark the reason why that grotesque shape was created. It was created to set up a primary contest between two incumbents, one that lived out in the southwest and one that lived over in Cambria County. That's a common in western Pennsylvania gerrymandering technique because we tend to lose districts in western Pennsylvania. If you go down to the bottom, you can see that 10 years later, they re-gerrymandered this thing, putting District 12 in a totally different place. Not south of the city, but north of the city. Again, to set up a primary contest between two Democrats. They have eliminated that. The Democrat that over in Cambria County, that won both times, lost the general election to Keith Rothfuss. And if you will look at District 14, that's the city. Now, the city's going to vote Democratic no matter what you do, but you can see there's a little squiggle, my word, going north from the city. That's the Allegheny Valley. And the Allegheny Valley has power plants and some dying industry. It's tradition of union jobs that vote Democrat. So what they've done as a gerrymander is to pack those votes in with the city. Those votes really have no vote. I mean, they're surplus. Whereas if they'd left them in the stretch that they have been taken out of, those voters might actually have had a choice and made a difference. Now, next tab, if you can do it without the tab falling off. Eastern Pennsylvania, look at 16. 16 is mostly farms, it's Lancaster County, good farmland. But again, there's a little squiggle going off to the northeast, and that ends at Reading. Reading is a town with dying industry that has people there that are really totally unlike, and concerns are unlike the rest of District 16. They've been cracked. They've been basically put in with people who are unlike them. So in fact, they have essentially no vote that counts. And this is the kind of thing that happens. Now, it's not just, I'm dumping on the Republicans because that's who controls Pennsylvania. But if you look below, you will see two lovely gerrymandered districts, and those were done by the Democrats in Illinois and Maryland. So this is a nonpartisan problem. It's a problem that recurs all over the country, and it is not doing great things for our democracy. Next tab, if I can get it myself. The Pennsylvania Constitution, unlike the U.S. Constitution, actually has some requirements as to how districts should be done. And you can read the rest of this at your leisure, but what I want to point out is the second paragraph that says, unless absolutely necessary, no county, city, incorporated town, borough, township, or ward shall be divided in forming either a state, senatorial, or representative district. Now, the absolutely necessary is absolutely necessary because we have 203 representative districts in Pennsylvania, and so in a city or even a small, largest town, you couldn't fit all of those people in one representative district. The numbers wouldn't work. So they do have to divide in some places, but they don't have to do some of the kinds of things they do. Sort of near to my heart is what happened to Ross Township. If you look on the bottom there, in the 1990s, Ross Township was part of a very compact and contiguous, as compact as you can get, respecting municipal lines, district. Now, it was necessary because population shifts in the next redistricting to move a district to the east. And I'm not quibbling about which one they chose. They chose 29. But look at over on the next part what they did to fill in that area. And incidentally, that white part should be green. It's the map only had Allegheny County. The white part's up in Beaver County. So District 16, which is mostly in Beaver County, they pulled all the way down to the river. They put a little piece of District 30 in Ross, and they made two other districts that sort of wandered around even across the river. They split Ross Township among 4 districts. Now, I'm sure that council people know that every once in a while, you need to get hold of your legislator to complain about something that's going on in the state that's affecting you. Like, you really need some help with some bridge repair, or you need some help with something. I see a grin on Toby's face. So you're in Ross Township. Where's your legislator? Well, maybe up in Northampton, maybe over in Beaver County. Probably doesn't live in Ross Township, the way it's broken up. So Ross Township, that was, it is no accident, I think, that Ross Township just passed this resolution to fix the redistricting a few weeks ago. They have seen this problem. Next tab. That's Butler County. And you can see the Butler County line, sort of. And if you look carefully and count carefully, you will find that within Butler County, there's all of 2 districts and parts of 5 others. not supposed to split a county. I can see no rationale that particular districting was absolutely necessary. I haven't tried to parse the reasons why they did the particular things they did, but I'm sure there are some. But that district and the Ross Township district, under the Pennsylvania Constitution, I would say are unconstitutional. They're illegal. And there's some information about how somebody tried to deal with that. Next tab. You've all heard about the recent lawsuit. I have had several very intelligent people say to me, "Oh, you won the lawsuit. It's solved. No, problem solved." No. The problem was half solved temporarily. Half because it only changes the congressional districts, and we still have our gerrymandered state legislature. Temporarily because after the 2020 census, redistricting will all be done again and probably create some of the same problems. So, what do we want to do about it? Last two tabs. We would like an independent citizens redistricting commission. We feel that the politicians have basically abused their privilege of doing the redistricting by doing this kind of thing. So the commission would be composed of just plain citizens, registered voters. They must be registered voters. And there is a chart that follows these two pages with the tabs on it. Don't try to find it now. But it compares, it lays out the system we want in much more detail and compares it to the current system for redistricting at the state level. So we keep the politicians out of the process. The other thing we want is that it be transparent and with public input. We can't even get the data that was used to do the districting made public. We've tried. So we want a public hearings before and during the process, and we want a public website on which the commission shall post, essentially show their work. You probably all remember the high school math teacher that when you did the problem and the test in your head and put it down on the test paper, it wasn't accepted. The teacher said, "No, show your work." Is that familiar to anybody? Certainly, yeah. I see a grin. Indeed, show your work. We want them to show their work. Even, they're not politicians, but regardless, we want this process to be transparent. So there's a lot more information in here about how the bill would work, about some of the impacts of gerrymandering, and you can read that at your leisure. And in the front, I've clipped a card. You'd be delighted between now and next Monday if you have questions that will really take up too much time out of this meeting. I'll answer questions now if you want to take the time out of the meeting, but I'm beginning to worry about the time frame. But I will be glad to answer questions by telephone or by email that you have, and I urge you to seriously consider adopting it. Oh, I guess I did skip the last tab, didn't I? That wasn't clever. The last tab shows you that we have to amend the Pennsylvania Constitution to do this, and in order to do that, we made it hard, but it should be, to amend the Constitution. We have to pass this in the current session, and we're pushing that very hard. And then in the next session, and then it has to go to a public referendum. And I will show you a map of where resolutions of this type are passed. Questions?
I have one question.
Yeah.
I noticed on the resolution, it said that you would be appointing, that you would be choosing truly independent citizens. Where are you gonna find them?
I think we'll find them. Now, I've done 33 presentations on this over the last year. And it's a presentation that takes me 45 minutes to show you all the gory details, and there are some. But I did one over in Sewickley for something called the Senior Men's Club. of Sewickley. And this is a group of retired professionals, basically, doctors, lawyers, accountants, engineers, whatever, and I suspect it was largely Republican. And one question I was asked at the end was, well, the Republicans and the Democrats are battling over this. How are you going to find the independent citizens? And my answer is this. It's the politicians who are battling over this. I think most of our citizens are much more willing to talk to each other and to discuss and to modify their opinions and to work on something like this. And it isn't even all the politicians. It's the leadership. And I think that's just a matter of having, when you rise to the leadership of an organization like that, I think that it's, power corrupts. It's a matter of being, being in power. I really think that the citizens of Pennsylvania are better than that. I truly do. And that's what I told them over there, and I got a pretty big round of applause. These people had, who have been supporters of their party, and that's reasonable, and they should be. But they had no idea what their representatives were doing. And I've also talked to a number of people who have said, I've left the party. It's left me. It's doing things. It isn't the party I knew once upon a time. So I think that a bunch of citizens, including anybody in this room, could do a better job than what we have now.
Thank you.
Does that help?
Thank you. Thank you.
You are better than that. I believe it, yes.
Any questions from the,
Yeah,
I
think I have
oh,
one
I'm
here.
sorry. Who would be the people that would choose this
Okay.
committee?
I refer you to the chart that after this chart. It's a complicated process. It goes through having people apply and then having vetted that they belong to one of these three groups. And then a sort of a random, it's got to be supervised by the Secretary of the Commonwealth, and some people have criticized that as being political, but that's an administrative position. It's more like the lottery. You know, that once you have a pool of people, then you choose some more. Not some more. You narrow it down, and then and then there's a provision once they've narrowed it down some that the legislators actually can do what a jury can do what a lawyers can do in a jury selection. They can tell a couple of people they're not welcome. They can throw a couple of people off the jury list. And then there's a random drawing kind of process to pick the final 11. It's complicated, but it is better than having 5 people. Redistricting for Congress and for the state legislature are 2 totally different processes, which I think you'll find something about in here. And for the state legislature, it's 5 people. It's the majority and minority leaders of the 2 parties in the 2 houses, plus a 5th person that they shall agree on. And if they don't agree, that person is selected by the Supreme Court. So we have this little 5-person commission that is doing all this behind closed doors, with really no public input and no public opportunity to see what they're doing. Does that help?
Sounds like a long process.
Before you take the audience
Well,
comment.
we have a deadline, because if we don't get this through by 2020, then the next redistricting is 2030. I mean, we have the current system for another decade.
How is the term qualified defined, Sue?
Qualified, all right.
Yeah, qualified applicants. The secretary randomly selects 40 qualified applicants
They
for each.
must be registered voters in either the majority, either the Republicans or the Democrats, or some other party.
And that's the criteria listed here above?
Yes, I think so.
That's
I haven't
that
looked at
first
the chart.
block.
Yeah, let me find the chart. Hang on.
It's the shiny page that she has.
Yes, it's the shiny page.
Right after the
Okay.
end.
So, find the word qualified for me.
Doesn't seem like it takes much to be qualified.
Yes, they must, here it is, criteria for members.
Right.
They have to have the same voting registration for 3 years. They must have voted in at least 2 of the last 3 elections. And then there's all the stuff that eliminates politicians
Got it.
and their, whatever. But you know, one thing about the 4 of each party and then the 3 that are not, those are independents or green or libertarian or what. When have any of those people ever had a voice in Pennsylvania politics? Ever.
You've requested that council take action on this next Monday. One of the things in the draft resolution was how the commission is selected. That wasn't included in that I could see in the draft resolution.
There's a copy of that in your package, but there isn't one in mine. Can somebody hand me
Sure.
the agenda here? Thank you so much, because I know it's in here.
It should be near the top, so it's like the third page down.
All right, where are you looking?
Unless I missed it, I didn't see it.
No, it wasn't in there.
All right, repeat your question.
It doesn't state how the commission would be appointed
No.
or created.
this-
It says it should be created, but it doesn't say
Right.
how. I think
And
it's,
there's a reason for that.
okay.
I mean, this is a resolution asking you to support an independent commission. It is not asking you to specifically support the 2 bills in the legislature now to create that, which have that information in it. Because when you adopt this, things can change. The legislature can amend, they can, so we can't ask you to support the bills, actually. We ask you to support the idea of an independent
Okay.
commission.
Just
That's
make sure I
all
want to
we're
clarify
asking.
for council, because I'm,
Yeah,
The-
I'm sorry that wasn't clear.
no, you don't need to apologize, just need a clarification, because there's 2 people in the room that would probably be asked to do any fine tuning. That would be the young man at the end of the table here, Gavin Robb, our town attorney, and me. We're gonna be asked to, if there's any adjustments to be made, and we have a few days to do it, so.
And that's why I have a phone number and an email, and if you need to, for me to try to help, because this is a very hastily put together presentation. I'll be glad to do that. I'm used to talking to attorneys. Bill Kim knows I was married to one for several years. His favorite law professor. And who, as a matter of fact, had quite a hand in developing the original, the land use stuff that you're now dealing with. So.
Okay, I'm gonna see if there's any questions from the audience.
Please.
Okay, all right.
I hope I haven't
Is
brought you
council
all the way.
comfortable with this
I have one
resolution
question.
or this? Oh,
We're a commonwealth, not a state,
That's correct.
so I don't know how that's gonna be structured. How we're gonna do that,
The
because we are
the
the
Commonwealth,
commonwealth.
the Commonwealth and the state are just names. That's semantics. They
Well, I don't know about
operate the
election
same way.
time.
What?
I don't know, when you're breaking the districts up for the votes and
Yeah, but
everything.
there's no difference between a Commonwealth and a state.
okay.
The state of Pennsylvania and Virginia choose to call themselves Commonwealths.
Well, we were Virginia,
But it's,
Our-
or Pennsylvania.
All right, thank you,
Thank you very much.
thank you.
Thank you.
Is council, thank you for that presentation. Is council comfortable putting this on our agenda for next week? Do we have enough time to look over this and feel comfortable
I
deciding
need
what
to
or not?
review it further, but I don't object
Will you need a-
moving forward with placing it on the agenda.
Okay.
But move forward, then just decide how you want to, how you want to vote.
Okay, well, we would be voting on it next week, if you feel like you have enough time.
We wouldn't be voting
This
on it
week.
next week. Will
Yeah.
it be
It's
the
your
last
monthly
week?
voting meeting.
It's our meeting.
It is our public
Oh, is
meeting.
that really, next week's the last one?
Yes.
Okay, right up.
Yep.
Yes, it is. I thought we had one more week.
No, we have agenda meeting and then our
Right,
voting
sure.
meeting. So does that
I'll do
give
my
everyone enough
homework.
time? Okay, all right, so we can put it on the agenda?
Put it in our format.
Okay,
Yes, ma'am.
okay. Okay. Okay.
The voting meeting's Monday, April 30th, right? Is that correct?
Monday, April 23rd.
Third. Yeah.
23rd. That's the
Okay.
regular business meeting. I got it.
Number 4, recommendation of the town participate in the North Hills Council of Government collective cable television franchise negotiation with Verizon and Comcast. Do you want to say anything about that, other than if we negotiate together, we usually get more bang for our buck?
Exactly. That said it much more expediently than I would have made 3 brief points.
Yeah. Okay, any other questions?
Good comment.
Debbie would have made it like take longer.
I was ready for more if you
All
wanted
right,
it.
so that'll be something that we,
It'll be on
we
the
have,
agenda.
that'll be on the agenda too. Any comments about that, council, in the audience? Okay. All right. Next one, let's review the agenda for the business meeting. Invocation minutes, there's no reason to go over that. A nice little announcement about the celebrating the 50th anniversary for the library. The next one is about the CVest Healthcare. We already said to keep that on there. The second one is to approve the request from Sheets. Did everyone got the letter? Did everyone see the letter from the owners? Okay. Have we looked at this enough? Do we feel like educated enough to go ahead and leave this on there to vote on this for next week?
Yeah, I don't want to make a motion on the Sheets thing, but, I'll let someone else make a motion.
Okay, so, all right, so you.
I want to hear from, all the people and all the other things.
Okay, so what would we would be still voting on this.
Right, yeah.
And then we would
Yeah.
have a public meeting
Pardon me?
after it. So, this is what we would be voting on
Yeah,
next week.
someone would make a motion and someone
I know, I wouldn't
second it,
want to make
and
a
then-
motion on that.
And then, we could have discussion then, and then discussion with the public, but I don't want to make the motion.
Okay, all right, that's fine. All right, that's fine. Does anybody from council have questions about this? We've kind of gone over this. And if no one makes the motion and no one seconds the motion, then the motion
Fails.
fails. That's
Right.
how that is.
That's-
So if no one wants to make it, that's perfectly fine. Any,
Well, I just wonder if,
go ahead,
no,
wonder
Of course,
aloud.
if no one makes the motion.
maybe I should make this at the public meeting. I just wonder
This
if.
is pretty public.
Yeah, well, I just wonder if Sheets isn't bifurcating this thing. They're getting the gas stations approved, which is a conditional use. And then could they come along later with respect to the convenience store, which is in a C3, although it shouldn't be a C3. It should be, and maybe not get the proper. We couldn't put the proper lighting on that thing. We couldn't make it so it would be neighbor friendly. So someone from the it was Brian Morath from the Planning Commission gave me some language that he would want to see in there to make sure that if the neighbors complained about the lighting, that they would get some relief. And those things, what's the, if I have the
Well, before we would approve it, wouldn't we put those stipulations in?
well, that's what I mean. I don't know.
Well, I would think.
That's a second phase.
Yeah, that's a second phase, but
So
is
this
it too?
just to
Is it
move
too
on with
late?
the study, right?
Is it too late? Is it too late once? Does this, in fact, almost pave the way for Sheets to put in a? We passed this amendment. It paves the way for Sheets to put in. And if we put these extra conditions regarding lighting, I'm afraid they could say, hey, that's unreasonable. And
Then that's their privilege to do though, isn't it?
Yeah,
I mean, if they
Well,
don't, if they
who
don't
cares
like
if they say
the
that?
stipulations that we set up, that's up to them.
exactly.
well, whether we could put any whether we could put any conditions on the convenience store at all, since it's a C3, and the thing that's before us is the gas station, which is, you know, an RC.
I mean, can we treat the two
Yeah, as
different
one.
businesses
Yeah,
as
well-
one, or do you have to treat them
well,
together?
they seem to be bifurcating it. When I looked at the advertisement, and the advertisement just lists the property on Perry Highway, which is RC. It doesn't list anything on Montclair, which is C3. And so that could possibly happen. We could approve the RC portion, and then the C3, they would say just, they would just, you know, do what they're required to do.
They're already existing in the C3, correct?
Pardon me?
There's already an existing store in the C3, the one
Right.
you're referring
No,
to.
well, no, there's a residence in the C3. That's the thing about this.
C3.
Montclair's a C.
There's an existing Sheets,
It's across the street.
No, that's
Right,
across the
that's,
street.
Gavin's
across
talking about the
street.
and that's in the
existing
C3
sheets.
district.
Right.
correct? Okay, so that's the one I thought you were referring to. So, you know, this zoning amendment, you're right, would just apply to the RC district. It would eliminate that restriction about you can't have them within 1,500, you know, linear feet of each other, unless it's at an intersection. Signalized intersection, thank you.
So my concern with this is that we said that this applied to another intersection, right? Perrymont and McKnight.
Doesn't.
Well, it would apply to, yeah, would
I mean,
apply,
it
if
could,
it's amended,
it could
apply.
technically,
Yeah.
but only if the church was willing to bulldoze itself over. It's the only
wait,
lot
wait,
big
wait,
enough.
wait.
Wait a second, they put one across the street from.
No, the properties are big enough. I looked, all three. There's 4 properties at that intersection. The church is the only one big
So
enough.
what my point is that if this might affect a different area, I think we need to look at all the places that this potentially could affect, and I'm not sure
Well-
that we've really done that. That's
Well,
my
it
only
could only affect
concern.
the only other area it could affect is Perrymont, other than this.
But we
Perrymont
haven't really
is
looked at
in
that to
Holland.
say how that would be affected. That was my
Right.
only concern, because if we only looking at this one and we change the whole thing, maybe it will affect this one over here adversely because we didn't look at this
Well,
one
it could,
too.
yeah.
Well, it can't affect the Perrymont intersection because you have a 30,000 minimum square foot property size.
Yeah,
So the only property that's big enough at Perrymont is the church.
so
So unless you think somebody's going to buy the church, tear it down, and put a gas station there,
well,
it's-
coming up Perrymont to the right.
there's 4 properties. They're all 3 too small. There's the
No,
Hawaiian
coming
Tans.
from McKnight Road to Perry Highway, going to the right, and that property is.
Hawaiian Tans.
Yeah,
No, it was smaller than the 30,000 square feet we were.
What if you
and
combine those?
and on the left
What if you
side,
combine those?
yeah, you could combine them.
Combine them,
That's
yeah.
what they're doing.
If we allowed them to combine properties,
But that's
which
my-
we would have to do.
Right, but that's my point, is that we need to look at that and consider, you know, that was my only concern, is that I don't feel like we looked at every place this might affect.
Well, those are the only two, I think. Highland and Perrymont.
You're certain those are the only two then?
Well, the only intersections with the lights.
Yeah, I would almost think that
it's-
the light at
Highland
Ingmar
and
and
Perrymont,
19.
is that what you said?
Yeah, Highland.
Highland?
Perry Highway and Perrymont.
Oh, Perry Highway, not.
What about Perry Highway and
Wait,
Ingmar?
what's that that goes?
That would be
up?
big
That's
enough.
Perrymont that goes down.
Oh, okay.
The RC zone is the little red one
Yeah.
down. Sheets on the existing sheets is this triangle, kind of semi.
Right.
Yeah,
this
and
thing
the
here, which is RC.
and the piece on Montclair is a C3, but that's where they're going to put the convenience store, and that
Right.
convenience store is right in, you know, in the neighborhood, a residential neighborhood, R2. And I just.
With
I'm just
houses that
worried-
look like they're gonna fall down, that
Well, not
are
necessarily.
unoccupied.
Well, no, there's, well, the 131,
Two that are unoccupied.
well, 131 is unoccupied, and so is the one next door to it.
But I said
But
the
the
two.
house, the house across the street is not unoccupied. Houses across the street aren't unoccupied. I'm worried about the lighting.
Well, that's what we were talking about.
Yeah, that's not in this though. That wouldn't be.
That's not on what
That's
we're
for the
writing
next.
now.
That's
That
for
would be
like the next phase.
Well, yeah, but have we moved too far by agreeing to this text amendment? You know, they automatically have to. I mean, they can automatically just put the a convenience store in once we commit to the gas stations. I mean, it's not.
But I understand what you're saying, that you're concerned with the lights, as I am. But can't we put stipulations on of things that they're allowed to have or things they need to do?
Well, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, I mean, there's lighting standards, I would.
Right,
I
so
think
that it doesn't
in the
affect
ordinance.
those people.
Right, so that would
So
probably
we're
require,
protecting
I don't have it all in front of me, but I imagine we require shielding and, you know.
Right.
Toby,
They have to
you-
present a plan, a site
Right,
plan.
exactly.
We
Right.
haven't approved a
Yeah.
site plan, and
Yeah,
that's
but-
where we say bushes and lights,
Yeah, but
Right, not here.
right? Bushes and lights.
no,
is the
not
same
here.
thing?
But once, but once they get this approved and they meet your basic lighting and what the code says, but that's not enough, say that is not enough, and the neighbors complain. What are we going to do?
There are very specific lighting requirements that there's no spillover. There's a zero spillover at the lot line. They're gonna have to do some serious shielding, I would think.
But wouldn't that be our job to make sure that that's
Right, but
taken
they're
but,
care of?
different.
but can we well,
Make them change
the
it
ones
if
that
it doesn't work,
yeah,
you're saying.
yeah,
We
if it
make them
doesn't, if
change it.
Even if
the
that, we're
basics
in the
don't
wrong.
work, what's in the zoning code doesn't work, will they change it to go with something that the planning commission, at least a person from the planning commission has suggested?
Just in general, without, specific direct lighting can be dealt with. And and is on development after development. There's a glow that a store would
Right.
have that is never ever, it's almost impossible to eliminate a glow. The glow is not being, it's just a matter of, you are gonna have to see a lighting plan, but the ordinance would have to be applied, studied by how the application comes in.
Yeah, but what's
But to ask for additional conditions, you can, they have to be accepted
well,
by the applicant.
can you ask for additional conditions when the RC area is only limited to the gas tanks and not the convenience store?
As your administrator, I say yes, you can ask. We have asked on
Well,
many,
what do they give
many,
them? What do they say
they
yes?
have to agree. They have to
That's
agree.
what he wants, can we make them do it?
That's not, Gavin, I
we
don't
can
think
set
that's.
it up
Ask is the
and
wrong
they
question.
accept
If it's
it.
not in the
general.
ordinance, you can't go, can't go above and beyond without their
We have-
consent, you're
Well,
right.
without
So-
their consent.
No, that's
Right, right, so I mean, we're stuck with whatever our regulations require, and we can't require anything further.
Right.
But to the extent that you're doing a conditional use approval, and you determine that, maybe you could include some additional language saying, ensuring that, there's no light spillover. I mean, it would have to be tied into health, safety, and welfare, which that probably is.
Yeah.
So, assuming, again, assuming you enact a zoning amendment, then the next step would be, they would come in with an application for conditional use, which would trigger a public hearing before council.
But that's only with respect to the gas tanks, the three pieces of property on Perry Highway. The conditional use is not the RC, not the C3 area. That's,
We're only talking about the RC property.
yeah,
Bless you.
but the convenience store is going to be in the C3 area.
This property, the
Oh, this is
proposed
split
Sheets
zone.
property has
Yeah.
2 zones
Right.
on it.
Precisely, let me go back to fundamentals. When you look at what's written down there in number 2, I'm not gonna read the whole thing. Move to approve a request from Sheets to amend the
Proceed.
conditional use. Now,
Okay.
and if that were passed, where does that place Sheets and anybody else? What is it allowing them to do?
It allows them to file an application
Yeah.
to go in an area where they may not necessarily have been able to go to because of that 1,500-foot restriction.
Okay,
Oh,
that's the key right there.
Right.
I have a question on that 1,500-foot restriction, because I kind of read it. Since Sheets owns the only gas station within 1,500 feet,
They lease it.
they lease
Yeah.
the property, but they own the gas station. They put the tanks in, right? They would have the right to close the store. So in my mind, if you own if you have a gas station here and you build one here, as far as I have read, they just can't be open at the same time.
So the question will be then, and you've hit on it pretty dead on, is the current property owner who leases the Sheets will make the argument that they plan on simply putting another gas station and they're never abandoning that use.
But
Well,
that's
but they
not-
don't
that's
have
not
that
what they-
opportunity because there's another gas station within 1,500 feet.
Well, but if they never abandon the use, then, maybe by them having, even though the equipment's not there, if they're continuing to try to operate a gas station which they're allowed to do because they previously did it, they are potentially stopping the other sheets across the street from even going in, because there isn't, even though it's, the physical structure might not be there at the time, they still have the right to build that.
Even though
to
they
build
never
that gas
operated
station.
it. These people never
Right.
operated
It
the
stays
gas
with the
station.
property. So that's why, and being concerned about that legal argument is why Sheets has come here and said, well, geez, I think we want to try to prevent someone from
So
raising it.
essentially, two people can say nobody else has a right to anywhere within this 1,500 feet, and we'll charge whatever rate we want to. We've got you completely under control.
You can just go down the street a mile and get gas.
Well, the
Either
next
way.
door, right?
Right.
Not necessarily the
really.
people, but
And not
There's one-
forever, I
There's one
mean,
at Cumberland, that's it.
and not forever, right?
There's
You don't
one dump
maintain
out
the,
Paramount,
Yeah.
too.
you don't
Yeah.
maintain the ability to continue that right forever. I mean, after a year, it's presumed to be abandoned, and then you'd have to establish that you were
well, that's
trying
if
to
they
maintain
didn't
it.
build within a year.
Right.
A concern that I also had too is I asked specifically, council, why they wanted this change. And what they said was that the landowners wanted to maintain their, you all were there, they wanted to maintain
Right.
the right to have a service station if they wanted to. So they were asking this for the landowners of the current sheet. And then we have a letter here from those owners, and they said that that is not true, that they were not even informed of this proposed change, and that they didn't learn about it until the following weekend, and that they read it on that they saw it on our YouTube.
My next question is that they knew, excuse me, they knew about it the week before, why didn't they come to the meeting?
No,
They knew
did-
about it the week
they did
after.
the week after. Yeah, that's what this says.
Right, I read it that way too.
And
Yeah, I mean, I think
Preceding, the weekend preceding.
although they did not learn about it, well, they're saying that the Sheets people are saying that they're doing this to protect the owners of the property, the old Sheets. The owners of the property, the old Sheets, are saying they don't know anything about this and they didn't ask that. So
Yeah.
I feel a little, I mean, that's what they told us.
And I think if that's what was said, I think the applicant probably misspoke, because I don't think that they would, I mean, they really, it's clearly benefiting the other property, the new Sheets property, right? Not necessarily the old one.
That's a
Although,
pretty big misstatement, I think. I think
Well,
that's a big
I mean-
misrepresentation, actually, to say, oh, it's not us, we're protecting them.
Do we want to get in the middle of this?
I agree with
Right.
that too.
I mean, I
Right,
just
exactly.
don't see
You
changing,
look at the,
changing an ordinance that's been around for
Last
4
page.
years.
I agree.
Just flip it to your
you
left.
may end up in the middle of it anyway, because, if you don't approve the amendment, it may
Right there.
turn out that
Yep.
the Sheet still comes in and files her application at the new property in an attempt to, and will make the argument, of course, that they've pulled out of the old property, so there's no gas station, so they should be allowed to do it.
Well,
So-
then we would back up with you, just said, wait a year.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I doubt that they'll wait a year. They'll make their legal argument as to why they think that use is abandoned, because they pulled out all their fixtures.
What if Sheets were to exactly, not operate a gas station there, but pay the rent for a year?
Yeah.
They could do that.
So then these people wouldn't have any,
It would be a
Legs to
different
stand on.
legal argument for sure. It would weaken that. It would
I
weaken
mean, I
that
don't know what they
argument.
would get for that property, but.
Again, that's obviously up to Sheets as to how they best.
Right,
want to
that
handle
would be
it.
them.
That's
Let
not-
let me just point out the one other thing, is that Montclair is an R2 for the most part. This piece of property is
We're talking one lot, right?
one lot, but it's used as a residence.
Right, and the lot
It's
behind that
been-
is
The
vacant
house
too.
has been there since 1910. It's used as a residence, and for it to be zone C3, which is commercial highway, it has to be an arterial road such as Perry Highway, or a collector road such as Paramount or Cumberland, or any one of those big roads, and Grubbs Road. Those are collector roads. This is not this is a dead-end street with less than 20 houses on it. A dead-end street, it's no way it's a collector road or well, definitely not an arterial road, since arterial road's a Perry Highway.
It appears that C3 was part of property considered under the old zoning maps as all one piece.
It's down here.
I'm sorry,
All the way
I'm
down,
sorry,
down lower.
down here.
Mhm.
This was all considered one piece.
Yeah, but they were separate pieces.
Right, but it was considered, remember, you saw
Yeah,
the
yeah, I know.
hand-drawn zoning maps from the
Right, yeah,
from the
yeah,
50s.
it looks like
It looks like somebody, I don't know if it was intentional or not, who knows what happened in 1958 at this point. But this C was shown as C, this was all this red was all C3. Council in the 1990s thought it best to try to capture a mixture of what's going on there, residential and commercial. And so rezoned everything that abutted Perry Highway. Our engineers, things are much more accurate than they were 50 or 60 years ago. And that piece was a separate parcel, and it was because it doesn't abut Perry Highway, it's still C3.
Well, it may be a coincidence, but I was discussing something with someone that's going to be doing a cleanup on Saturday. And they said, one of the things she said was, she said, I said, well, send me an email, and it turned out that she sent an email and I asked for trash pickup on various locations, and then it complained about two gas stations. Neither of them, it wasn't she. She's, as far as I'm concerned, does a good job maintaining its facility. But they were naming, she was upset about cars that have been laying there for a long time, and parts of cars. And why I forwarded the email to Toby and Bruce. Do we want that the condition to exist, say at Perrymont? It's a potential. It's probably won't
But
happen.
you're talking
but it's a
about
potential.
what ifs. At
Yeah,
this point,
right,
you're talking
right,
about
right.
what ifs.
But
We're
I
amending the
thought-
statute.
I thought a convenience store wasn't allowed to have, work on car parts.
Well, we're amending
Work on cars.
I'm not talking about sheets. We're amending the ordinance to allow two gas stations to be at the same intersection.
What does that have to do with an abandoned car, though?
Well, I guess, I don't know, what it.
I think you're talking about service stations. but
Right, you're not allowed to have that in
pumping
a
gas.
convenience store.
Well,
Correct?
wait, you're not allowed to have it.
You're not allowed to service cars at a convenience store.
Yeah, but
I
this,
wouldn't think so, but off the top
these
of my
gas
head,
stations, do all gas stations have to be convenience stores?
I don't have my phone, I didn't bring my phone. I did text it to you. But our ordinance says, that a convenience store can't operate as a service station also. So that would block, and it has to be 30,000, let me try and find it.
I think if the town attorney's coming through the appropriate
Flip
section.
it, but I'm not there yet, so if Steve beats me, I'll.
I would also like to make a comment. If you have not driven by, that's over in my area, if you have not driven by that area, you really should, because that whole section needs to be
Dilapidated,
updated,
right.
It's horrible looking. I mean, if you blew hard, some of those buildings probably blow over, including the houses on Montclair.
Of course, that doesn't mean that a gas station would be the right thing there. Maybe something else would be there, but I hear what you're saying. It needs some kind of development, some kind of
It's really,
update.
it's bad.
Yeah.
It's bad.
So do we think that we're gonna be ready to put this, are we ready to vote on this, or do we need to put this off another month, or what, are you all ready to vote?
I'm not ready to vote on it. I mean, I'm not willing to make the motion.
1,500 foot required.
If they, as I said, as I asked before, if a vote takes place and it were positive, what position does it put the moving parties in?
They can have two gas stations at a light, and they don't have to be 1,500 feet apart.
And there could be
That's all
two
this
gas
says.
stations.
That's the only
at
thing
Perry-
that
and-
changes.
No, it
That's
could
right.
be two gas stations at Perrymont.
Yeah.
Right.
So you could end up with four gas stations on that.
You could,
Yeah.
you could. That's
Theoretically.
right. That's right.
Yeah, I
That's
mean-
right. That's right. So that's what this is here. So, Greg needs more time. What about everybody else? Are we ready? Do we want to put this off?
I mean, my personal thoughts are sheets can build their place without the other property if they
So you're saying,
just,
well, the question is whether we're putting this on the agenda. You can either vote it up or vote it down, because this is the agenda that we're approving.
I think put it
well,
on
I
the
think
agenda.
it should be on the
Put it
agenda.
on
I
there.
think the people want to come on the 23rd.
You can vote against it.
From what I understand, the people want to come and talk about it.
Okay.
So I would think,
On the agenda then? I mean,
I say yes.
on the meeting, vote for it?
Yeah, I'd like to hear the
Say
people
yes.
speak to it.
Yes,
I
give
see
them a
pros
chance
and
to
right,
cons.
Okay.
let the people
To
talk.
speak, that's a good point just by itself.
Nods. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, okay, it stays on. Okay, the next thing is, accepting a letter of resignation, that shouldn't be any problem. Ratifying the checklist, we have gone over that.
Did you find it?
Yeah.
Move to approve resolution saying that we can get rid of all the paper that we don't have to keep anymore based on Pennsylvania Municipal Records Manual. That's easy. And move to award this contract to Youngblood Paving as the lowest responsible bidder for $2,176,000 some change. I am concerned about that, the Public Works. We have in our budget $2 million for this project. So this is over a bunch. So, unless we have a tangible, concrete place where that money is for sure gonna come from, I am proposing, or I'm thinking about, would it be possible, or what do you all think about approving this with the agreement to suggest that the bidder lower their price, see if they will?
We can't do that.
Why?
It's against the bidding laws.
Okay, then can we ask them what we can change or what we can eliminate from this to bring the price down?
So as I understand, and I've still to take one last look through the bid specs with Toby and Mark, but I believe that some of the expenditures are optional so you could award the contract, but essentially direct the administration not to spend above the budgeted amount.
Would that take $176,000 off it?
We removed Blazer Drive from it.
The base bid, from memory, I think is $1,721,000 and some change. The optional items then make up the difference between $1,721,000 and the $2,176,000. So there's a lot of room under the base bid in our budget. The budget being $2 million even. The way the bid specs are written, we should award, unless Gavin were to say otherwise, it says the award is made on the total bid price, which is the base and the option. The option, there were 3 items I pointed out last week, and Mark Sabina also did. 3 items that are unknown, how much we'll use. Excavation, base repair, and additional asphalt to level off areas. So those are subject to the amount needed. So I don't think we want to tinker with those. Gavin will have to think about if the peace of mind of council, if we want to say we award the full bid, which the contract documents say, I believe, and then say that we instruct the administration we do not want to install the concrete curb for $136,000. We ask that you not take that option. We direct that you not take that option.
That's on Blazer Drive?
Don't leave that up to us, or leave that up to us coming back to you to say, we really think that should happen. I will tell you, we don't want to do that. The administration does not want to, we got that price just to see if we got this really super low price, we could put some new concrete curb along Glacier Drive and we look spiffy again. Well, it's not worth $136,000 to do that. So I think that could be directed. So that would, the just in case numbers could, I think it would be, it wouldn't be a good idea to take us, to restrict us to the 2 million, just in case the base repair exceeds the amount, because those are optional items. Those are there, every time we bid, they have to be there, because no matter what we do to try to figure out what conditions are underneath the road surface, there could be something, some surprise waiting for us when we mill off asphalt. So,
That's why this bid needs to come in below 2 million, because of all those possible overages.
a whole bunch of bids are
So-
way over 2 million.
Right,
and
right,
the
right,
bid
so-
climate, we got 6 bids, and was there,
But maybe we have too much in the bid, is my point. Maybe we need to pull something out of that.
well, remember, Mark pointed out that oil prices have gone up, and so we got a superb bid from a superb company for $1,721,000. We're going to use some of that money likely in the optional bid. And there were 2 items pointed out, the striping items, we should take those items. Those were optional. We should take those. Mark is checking to see if he can get the price cheaper, but we have bid those items as part of this package. So, I don't think we're gonna be over $2 million, but we could be, and in order to get that work accomplished, you could deduct a street, but those streets all need attention.
Blazer, to me,
Can't deduct that's for sure.
Blazer's the one that shouldn't be done, because we'll be putting trucks on it to tear the whole road up, hopefully, or the whole area up, hopefully.
Well, the plan is that we're gonna add asphalt to that, so we're gonna have a heck of a lot of asphalt there. It'll take a whole lot of tearing up to do, probably not enough that will be generated on the redevelopment of the Trader Horn site, or even the Rave Cinema. So I think we have to, we've got a great bid and a great company, so, and that's a good thing. And the chances of us going over, I can't say slim, but there could be, but you take the 136 out of the equation, where you're at 2,040,000, and I don't think we're gonna spend it. And I can't guarantee.
And did that include the islands too?
Well, Mark is looking to not do the all the island, because that, as you pointed out, we got a price on the islands. We need to look at the island across these, and Mark he wanted to shorten that work, so we won't do all that mountable curb work there either.
So that could, did that work out to the 40,000?
Close.
So I don't think we should approve this bid of 2,176,000. I think we should put the stipulation in here to leave out these things. I don't want us to spend money that we don't have, or money that we don't have. This is the reason we have a budget, is to keep our finances in order.
And what if we put off a street or two next year, oil prices come down, because he said they went up 30% this year, maybe they go down.
Could go up 30% next year too, but.
Or they can come down,
But if we spend money this year that we don't have, we're certainly not gonna have money next year.
Yeah.
The way the specs are written is that we award on the full price, including the optional items, and then we can deduct basically anything that we want. That's just
Of the optional items.
or even some of the base work, the base bid work.
I mean, just basically
We
renegotiate the
have
whole
the
thing?
right to deduct.
Okay,
Not negotiate,
Well-
deduct. Tell the bidder, you know what, we wanna make sure that we don't go over $2 million, so we can deduct. So I think what we really should award, because you don't like to say best, but this is, I'll just say, I'll leave it as I said it twice already. This company really does a great job. We've got a great price.
Well, if we have that flexibility, why shouldn't we move
Why,
forward?
we can exercise that flexibility and get back to you and let you know that we're not gonna go over it, if that's what you want to do.
can we change this language then?
No, we shouldn't change that language. That language is clear that it's based on the combination of the base bid and the optional items.
Yeah, but we have to award the contract as it was bid. But, like I said, I'll look with Toby this week, or, before we're ready to vote on it.
If there's any given that we can do, I'm certainly not being obstinate. I'm just telling you what we have stipulated.
But
and
we're
we-
positive we can actually
I
accept the bid
am
and-
positive, yeah, we can accept the bid and say.
tweak it down to a level we can
yes,
stand.
Yes,
We can get it down below
We can
2
get it-
million, okay.
yes.
Okay, all right, any other questions? That was my concern. I don't like spending
Absolutely.
money I don't have.
The only caveat is that, just keep in mind that whatever work we do, if we encounter some problems, there is a provision that allows us to, for a tonnage item, if we need more tonnage of asphalt, we need it to fix a road, we'll use it. So it's remote, but it's possible. You know, I think what we could do is shave it down, give ourselves a buffer zone, and then see how these roads, if there's roads that don't have base repair, we get to the point where we have roads that we are not milling, then it can be done. I'll get a little bit of help from Mark Sabina, since I'm not quite an expert on it. I've learned a lot about paving in the last 30-some years.
Is the schedule done yet?
No, the actual
Can
schedule.
we make Blazer Drive last entirely?
Well, I don't think we want to make Blazer last because we're not going to mill there. That's one of the things that Mark wants to change. It's not mill there, just add asphalt, just pave. So that's going to save money. So I think that's
And
why.
will that last? Just putting
We
the
could,
asphalt
we
last?
could do Blazer last, but I think that's something.
No, I'm saying, will the asphalt last if you're just putting a coating over top?
It's not a coating. We're talking about 5.5 inches of asphalt on top of what's there.
okay.
Instead of milling out 4 inches and putting 5.5 in, Mark wants to just build on top of it.
Does that change anything with the floodplain?
I'm having that checked.
Any other questions from council about this Public Works Committee? Okay, unfinished business, new business. We're going into executive session also for collective bargaining. If there's no other questions about the agenda, any questions from the audience?
John Harrison, Hedwig Drive, Ellison Park. In the future, do we feel comfortable with the fact that we did get the best bids on the asphalt work with having all the curb work? You're saying, Toby, it was about $130,000 worth of curb work that was gonna be done?
Not going to be done, an optional item.
As an optional item, had that not been part of the bid package, do you feel that we would have got a better price from the standpoint that they're an asphalt company and their expertise is asphalt, where now you're getting into somebody that has to go and outsource that most likely?
I think you answered your own question. They're an asphalt company, they bid their asphalt, and they gave a great number, better than 5 other people.
Okay.
And the concrete number is low middle compared to all the other 5 prices. So, maybe they're subbing it, maybe they're using their own people, but their number was somewhat below the average price of what concrete curb was by some of the other offerings.
Because a lot of times what people will do is they'll shuffle the numbers around to make it beneficial to them. They're gonna take that concrete work on as we'll call it a loss. They're still gonna make money on it, but they're not gonna make as much money. So had it been separated, that it was actually as 2 separate bids?
It is.
Okay, so it's
an optional bid item.
Okay.
Was that itemized? Looking to see.
Yeah.
It was
Yeah.
itemized, okay,
Yep.
I couldn't remember. So it was itemized.
There were about
ahead
a
of
dozen
time.
items that we got bid prices on as optional.
Okay, and then your other comment you made is you're not planning on milling Blazer Drive. You're planning on just putting 5 inches
At this point.
of new asphalt on top of it.
At this point.
But there are a lot of spots that are on Blazer Drive that are actually in poor shape, that are they're spidered very badly. There are low spots that are usually deterioration of the base is causing that problem.
It doesn't appear in this case.
Okay.
And also, I talked to our engineer, Dan Dyseroff, about that today, that Mark Sabina's proposal to do that, it will bridge those with that amount of asphalt. PennDOT and many other municipalities are starting to use that technique where they can, because the higher you build a road up, and you run into having to adjust driveways. In this case, we only got a couple of driveways, one high side driveway. Great place to try this technique, as long as the floodplain doesn't get affected.
Okay, so you would also have to go and also rework though all of the inlets into the stream,
They're
which
gonna
is.
be reworked anyway.
Okay, so they're gonna just raise those.
The inlets are all broken up anyway, so.
Okay, so they would have to redo all
They're
those.
gonna be redone anyway, yeah.
Okay, all right, thanks.
Sure.
Any other questions? Okay, board commission reports. Greg, anything additional? I think we've done all of your planning stuff already.
Yeah, I sent you the minutes and, yeah.
I think we've gone over everything on there.
Except for the marijuana and, so there, medical where marijuana, the state just recently passed the, what's the name of it? The state law is going to allow you to, the leaf. Vapor relief, that was a new addition. Not at the planning commission, but the state. Yeah, I really don't have,
Okay.
no, and then the zoning hearing board is this week, next Thursday.
Bill, you have a very thorough, report. Anything you need to add?
It's
or
all,
anything?
no, it's
That's
all
good.
ordinary business.
And as we're going through these, if anyone has a question on any of these reports, please speak up. Ambulances authority?
They did not meet
Anything
last
new?
month.
Okay.
They did not meet last month.
Library?
Minutes are there, just to mention that the gala
Yeah.
event is this Saturday. If you are still interested, there are still a few tickets left.
Okay. All right, North Hills County Governments, Steve?
Yeah.
Okay. Joint Rec? Is there any meeting?
I don't think so.
No meeting last month.
Okay, okay. MIDA?
On the rec, let's not forget, I believe we have an opening day at 9:45 at Vincentian. That's still on, I assume, right?
That's on the 23rd?
Isn't that
No, it's Saturday,
the
21st.
21st?
21st, right.
That's this coming Saturday, right?
Right,
Right,
yes.
okay.
So we're supposed to be at Vincentian.
Anything for the MIDA, Bill? Did you guys need to know?
No meeting,
Okay.
nothing planned,
Okay.
nothing, there's no date set yet. Nothing.
Volunteer Firefighters Steering Committee, Carolyn?
No meeting yet.
Okay. North Pittsburgh Community Development Corporation? Bill, anything? No meeting. Heritage Center?
Minutes are included.
Okay. I am really liking all the stuff that's going on over there.
Yeah, we have
What
lots
a-
of plans.
You got lots of plans.
Right.
I'm very pleased with all that's going there. Some really good activities coming up. I
Well, we're
like the
thinking
ideas.
about having a celebration for the first year.
I saw that. That's good. That's excellent. That's excellent. Keep us updated on that. Community Day?
Were you able to go, Joanne?
Yes,
Okay.
yes. I think.
There were
everything's-
minutes.
Listed under
Minutes
minutes.
Yeah, there were
minutes are
minutes.
included,
Mhm,
yeah, we
mhm.
just had the regular meeting and we're just adding, and what we're starting to do now is to make phone calls for food trucks. If anyone knows of anyone who might be interested, please let me know. So I'm starting to make calls for that.
There's also 30 minutes of available performance time if anybody sing, dance, plays a musical instrument. They've got one more spot
Or
open.
would like to
Around
entertain
speaker
us.
boxes and drum sets.
I
Would
believe
like to
Chief
entertain us.
DeSanti wanted that
I'd like
time.
to introduce this, right. The EAC, I want to remind everyone that cleanup day is also the 21st, 10 to 12. We're meeting here, that's a busy time. Also that I wanted to remind everyone that we're still doing our tree planting initiative, and if you planted some trees this spring, please record those at the town website, ms4@townofmccandless.org. And also in your packet, I think you saw from the EAC the recommendation or the motion to pass along to us the sustainability certification. Are there any questions about that at all?
Kim, if we could just quickly go back to
Sure.
the cleanup day.
Mhm.
What are the times and
10 o'clock people are coming here, and then
Meet at Hall.
There'll be a little continental breakfast, and you can get suited up with your.
That's the same time as the.
It is. We're gonna have to split. I know, but we're gonna have to split our divide and conquer.
how long is it
So-
scheduled to go?
2 hours.
2 hours. And then are they gonna assign or suggest to people where they should go?
Yep.
So just get your body here and then do what.
Get your body here, that's right. Everybody get your body here,
Okay.
okay? And if you don't wanna do cleanup, then, certainly
Go to the baseball
go
field.
to the baseball, exactly. All right. Personnel board?
No meeting.
Okay. The only thing that I was going to say is, remember that Tuesday is our Enhancing Civility Through Empathy at the Town Hall, 6:30 to 9:30. And April 26th is the launch of a new website. So, and we have our new playground apparatus back here. Should we do a little grand opening or a little something for that? Or let them play? Okay.
Things going on.
Okay, all right, so anyway, so check out the, we really got some nice things here. Our tennis courts are all, beautiful, the, volleyball court is top notch, and now we have this new play apparatus. So, if you don't get a chance, please go out, if you get a chance, please go out and check it. It's,
How do the pickle lines look? Did they redo those too?
very pickly.
They're pickled.
Very
Yeah,
pickled.
pickled.
There are quite a few people bringing that up at the
Yeah.
Seven Springs
It's-
Pickle.
You can't believe it.
That's what they kept saying. I'm like,
Never
Town,
heard of it until
the
last
town
year.
manager's report, did you have anything particular that you needed to? You wanted to bring out with that? Did anybody have any questions on the town manager's report?
Just so everybody realizes that on McKnight Road, I tried to accentuate this, especially since I got a report after we had already posted this report in the rest of the agenda packet, that PennDOT has kept the timing on McKnight Road signals on a fixed time basis. Because there's no radar equipment to detect where cars are, but soon there will be in the next couple of months or so, where this adaptive system will then be, the computers will be counting cars and dispensing time accordingly with the main road, being McKnight Road, always getting preference, but still, it will be, whatever the side road traffic is generated will have an impact. So it'll all be computer driven, and it's a system that works very well.
And anything else on that?
That's it.
Okay, we did receive a confidential, town attorney's report in our mail. Is there anything else that
Nothing
you need
else,
to say?
and if there's questions about that, I
Good
guess
report.
either at the next executive session, we can discuss any of those litigation items or whatever.
Are there any questions from any member of council about any of these items? Okay, so we'll open this up for questions from the citizens.
Hi, Barbara Richards again. I have a question about the town manager's report in 1B, McCandless Crossing East. Chief DeSanti has approved a permit with operating procedures for impacts as a result of several meetings with impacts, their attorney, and ours, Bruce Betty, Chief DeSanti. Is that the meeting that you discussed at two public meetings where you said that you would be transparent and tell the public what was going on?
Well, we've been reporting that we've been having these work sessions. I've been doing that regularly.
And I think that it was mentioned that Mr. Rosenberg was going to post something too.
Well, this is a permit, as it has been pointed out to me, and as much as I'd like to tell him to post, I don't have the authority to tell him to post something. We certainly asked him. In fact, I talked to him today when he delivered his signed copy of the permit, to acknowledge his receipt.
What
But-
kind of dispute?
A permit, this is a permit, this
You're
came
talking
down.
about the permit that Chief DeSanti signed off on?
Yeah, it's a permit under the 1961 ordinance that we have that, I'm looking at the town attorney's,
Yeah, I have
mainly
it.
it pertains to firing ranges.
Yeah, it says that, it's 709.03.
Right.
And it says any club or other group hereafter desiring to operate a range for the discharge of firearms or any individual, corporation, or other legal entity desiring to operate private or commercial range or bow and arrow shooting shall be required to first obtain a permit from the chief of police. And so I'm just wondering if this was brought up to maybe Chief Anderson back when they were originally desiring to put in gun range. And what, did he sign off on it?
The final permit that's gonna actually affect the operation is the one that Chief DeSanti signed off on. So that permit itself is a public record. So if there's someone who's interested in seeing a copy of that permit, you're welcome to submit
Is
the
that
request.
permit referring to this
Yes.
state, this thing?
Yes.
Yep.
Is Chief, any part of that permit allowing a gun range within 1,000 feet of the school?
The
Is
terms
that-
of the permit are available as a public record. I don't have it in front of me, but there were reasonable conditions put on by the chief of police to ensure the safe operation, in his opinion, of the shooting range.
I just wanted to ask council, I think that Mr. Wachowskis and Ms. Zachary at one meeting had asked for some clarification and for some actions to be taken, that you would be given information about the, about operating procedures. Was that done? Did you receive information before this permit was issued?
Yes, he did supply those to us.
Okay, right, thank you.
Any other comments?
Yeah.
Debbie Sagan, Parkland Drive. So just to follow up on Barbara's train of thought, you said the permit is available for the public to see, but do we have to file a right to know?
Yes,
Is
you
that
do.
the procedure?
Yes.
And so you won't answer the question like about the 1,000 feet away from a school? I understand that this is not 1,000 feet away from the school property at the Alpha School, and that the state.
There's no restriction to operate a shooting range that must be 1,000 feet away from a school.
There's no restriction
that's
at all?
correct.
State regulation.
No state regulation? No.
You are, think about the impact of that. What if you were a private homeowner and you live within 1,000 feet of a school? Are you saying you'd be able to restrict that person's ability to operate his own private guns?
This is not a private homeowner, this is
No, you're
this is a
right.
business, so it's apples and oranges as well.
Right. Yeah, I'm not familiar with any kind of restriction.
You're not familiar with
No.
that?
I read it seemed to me that it was, private property wasn't included in that.
That's correct. Oh, if you're talking about the Safe Schools Act,
Yeah.
yes, the private property does not qualify under the Safe
So
Schools
you're
Act.
saying that the gun range is on private property?
That's correct.
And so, okay, well, that's not how I read it.
That's how I read it.
Yeah, and you're the attorney, so I'm
So I
sure
read
that
it.
carries a lot of weight. But I'll look into that again.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks for that refresher, Stevie. I couldn't recall the act.
I don't see why it would be different, in private property, 1,000 feet is 1,000 feet. But I'm sure you looked into that.
Did.
I think there was something, I think that was all. There was one other thing I was thinking, I'm sorry, my old brain. If I think about it, I'll let you know. Thank you.
Any other comments? Okay, in that case, the agenda meeting is adjourned.